Hey, it's Soul, and today there's no B-roll, it's just going to be me, so put me on your other browser tab if you want. Today I want to talk about how professions are doing in Dragonflight, and by that I mean how are they really doing? I'm going to do my best to answer that question through all the feedback that I've been hearing, as well as my own experiences, so what's good, what's bad, what woulda, coulda, shoulda been done, I guess. So hit the like button, subscribe for more content, and let me try to make it really clear that individually, our experiences with the profession changes in Dragonflight depend on a lot of factors, from like realm size to the realm demographics to the professions that we chose, of course, the combination of those professions to even our own play styles, how much we play the game, how much we view the characters, and well, the rest of WoW itself. So the energy that I'm bringing to this video is to not to persuade or anything. I want to invite discussion, share ideas and stories. Supposedly, one or two WoW devs might be watching this sort of content, so let's try to be polite, okay? So the way that I see it, the profession changes were sold as a revamp or an overhaul that pulls away from what I thought was an overly simplistic system of obtaining recipes and then making things and then hoping that they sell on the auction house or on trade chat. The idea of specializations was limited to just a few professions, and in some cases we could sell those specializations, sort of. Like sometimes that came in the form of extra effort, where I guess, for example, there was a routine with making something each day that eventually let you make the sky golem. I guess that's a good example. I think that there's a combination of maybe the WoW team forgetting, but also we as players denying it to ourselves that professions are a form of player versus player interaction. And not everyone uses those sorts of words to describe it, so I'm gonna give it a go. Like, there's a solo, there's a co-op, and there's a PvP version of professions in most MMOs. And in Dragonflight, going solo with professions would pretty much mean running a whole bunch of alts to be very self-sufficient at every level of production, so from gathering to parts to product. Going co-op means, playing nice with a tight-knit group such as a guild, so you can meet your goals and otherwise thrive together. And then finally, there's the PvP version, which most people participate in, where we're competing for business. All right, so let's talk about how the first few weeks have gone by chronologically in Dragonflight. And by the way, my main professions are as a blacksmith and an engineer. I'm a dual crafter. So it wasn't so far-fetched of a prediction that in the very beginning, gathering professions would have a huge win, and they did. With Season 1 having just started, we're starting to see the normalization of supply and demand of gathered goods, but the money is still definitely there. For gatherers, it's more or less the same expansion experience, as most of their interactions with other players take place in the auction house or if they're competing for nodes. Meanwhile, crafting professions at the start of Dragonflight did what they've always done: they've leveled up. Many of us felt excited about the cool items that we could eventually make, but also we kind of forgot that, well, we still need levels, which means making a bunch of leveling items or crap that we otherwise aren't going to use. And that's exacerbated by that first craft bonus that gets us specialization points. Now, many of these items that we made while leveling are bind on equip, they're BOEs, and they can be sold on the auction house. And so they were. So on the client or the customer side of the game, early Dragonflight, it did also feel like any other expansion where you just, see something in the auction house, you buy stuff and you enjoy it. But it led to crafting orders, which are, the brand new thing, to kind of take off on the wrong foot, sort of. Crafting orders can't compete with the auction house early on, when crafters are making like leveling items no matter what that have a much lower value than the materials that were used to gather to make them. Crafting orders are for items that you either can't find, or they're just BOP, or they're otherwise uneconomical to make, and then you just hope it sells. It made that weekly quest to fill crafting orders pretty hard, or maybe even impossible for some to do. Now, I myself was fortunate that I could use my alt to request an order for shovels that I can make as a blacksmith, and I did the same thing to make myself cheap goggles that I needed to make for discovering a new recipe. So in short, BOE leveling items, it stunted the early potential for crafting orders. But that only meant that market wasn't viable because profession gear, okay, that took off. Now, profession gear turned out to be one of the first things that regular players could get access to in order to differentiate themselves from others, and that turned out to be a pretty cutthroat business. Now, until recently, some players were able to cheese the Artisans Consortium reputation by taking a character and then having them complete all of the profession quests for this faction that are available. Now, that involved taking up a profession, leveling it, doing the quest for reputation, and then switching it out for another until they got like a boatload of reputation and access to recipes before anyone else did. Other profession tool recipes were only accessible through high renown, and so what did some of us do, including myself? Grind, or exploit, although I didn't do that part. But they did that stuff to get these recipes. And for many, the grind paid off. Of course, when there's a high demand for a thing and you're the only one who can provide it, you win. Now, that aside, the rest of us folks relied, or maybe not relied, but I guess gambled on choosing the right specialization. For a time, I was one of the very few people who could make the zap throttle, whatever it's called for engineers, that's used to get special items that are used to make higher end crafted pieces. Now, as a bind on use item, it sold really well on the crafting orders thing as well as the auction house, so I chose right, at the expense of the rest of my engineering skills, of course. I'm also the best shield crafter on my realm at the moment. Now, I don't get a lot of orders, but when I do, clients have been pretty happy. Unfortunately, it didn't work out so well for many others. Not everyone did their research, they didn't look up the guides or the calculators, and really they shouldn't need to. However, professions are, again, largely a system that puts players against one another, and as frustrating as that can be, you gotta respect the hustle. Crafting orders are a cool idea, but also it hyper-focuses on the demographics of a given realm. It highlights the strengths and weaknesses. Specializations in professions are a window into how a character and its operator, the player, identify themselves. It doesn't bring me a lot of excitement when I would tell people that they should specialize in just parts or to just gather stuff because they're on a low pop realm and crafting orders would not work very well. And I've had to correct myself, but I regret my mistake in understanding that personal crafting orders are not a region-wide thing. But players are learning hard lessons about demographics. Why are small realms small? Why are big realms big? And who inhabits them? For the most part, the biggest realms, they focus on PvE content. They contain like the top 100, 200 guilds, and that influence tends to lure in top PvE talent for raids and to a certain extent Mythic Plus, followed by, those people's friends and so on and so forth, and that influence, the desire for certain items is shared to a degree. So there you have players who are progression-minded, who want the best versions of stuff, and for player crafters, they're in this, they're going to be in a competitive market on these realms, but they still have the traffic and they're expected to thrive. Meanwhile, player gatherers, they don't use crafting orders really, they just use the regional auction house, so they thrive no matter what. But small realms naturally don't have that same demand for higher end goods. Notably, they have less of that top tier talent who wants high-end items made. So it's both the numbers and the demographics that makes low pop realms struggle in personal crafting orders. But now let's try to get back to the timeline. So professions during the preseason focused a lot on preparation, as well as the building of the crafting industry. Like the biggest users of crafting orders, I think, were crafters themselves, trying to make top-tier profession tools. And this is followed by those who were crazy enough to have primal infusions, or were lucky enough to have high-end Titan training matrices. So in hindsight, as someone who totally binged on the preseason, I think that Dragonflight made a problem for itself by making so much gear available in the outdoor world. Now, it's also great that so much gear was available to the point where one could pretty much outgear Mythic Zero content without so much as stepping into an instance, which was my experience. What I would have liked to have seen, I would have liked to have seen more Titan matrices drop from world content to increase the variety of just things, cool things that we get. Now, right now, those items, those matrices are limited to Mythic Zeros, which can only be run once a week, and maybe a world quest, which we only see refreshes off of twice a week, and there might be some other smaller sources from like PvP. Now, I wonder what would have happened if the WoW team went through with daily refreshes of world quests before they got that pushback the other week. If there were world quests refreshing every day, we'd probably see more of these matrices circulate. We'd probably see a more thriving market for at least early low-level epics that were, you take a blue, you pop in a matrix 4, and ta-da, it's a 382 or so. And that would be great if it would be great if these Titan matrices were also tradable account-wide. I mean, potentially, yes, someone could hoard a bunch of them, and then when the time is right, they can deck out an alt with, like, nearly Mythic Zero gear. But is that, like, really a big problem, though? It's like, oh no, this player, oh no, they played the game, and now they're using gathered materials and interplayer systems to gear up. I think the WoW team, on this end, I think the WoW team was a little bit too afraid of these matrices negating world content. But I think that they can strike a better balance in the future that would result in a more thriving market of low-level gear for mains and alts. When Season 1 started just the other week, 2 sparks of Ingenuity became available for players, and we're starting to see more activity for higher-end crafted items. But the start of Season 1 also highlighted the specifics of, basic supply and demand from players, or at least the very specific nuances. The recipe for the Elemental Lariat, a neck, became available through Primal Invasions, and it instantly became the must-have item and recipe. I didn't keep track of, everything that drops where, but I knew that jewel crafting would be the winningest profession early in the season. And this should come to no surprise to crafters after what we've seen in patches 9.1 and 9.2, because if you recall back then, we were able to wear one special crafted piece of gear that crafters were able to infuse with extra item level, but it was only one piece, so the most popular combination easily was to infuse this item level into necks and rings for the highest secondary gain. And the same thing just happened here, only this time, instead of other crafting professions being totally screwed out of that market, they're just gonna kind of wait in line for the next spark to be made available. Because player behavior will just have people move from, the best item to the next best item and so on and so forth. Of course, that doesn't help anyone feel better, does it? Because we all want to thrive. We all want the decisions that we've made to have an endpoint that feels good. However, in this case, that sense of fantasy comes crashing down real quick because professions are, by and large, a player-driven system with windows of opportunities that open and close. There are a lot of folks out there who asked if they can reset their specialization points because they made a mistake, or it turns out their specialization that they chose doesn't work out very well. And I feel bad about that, especially as a content creator who tried to help, and I myself fell victim to this too. Like, my engineering specs are not in a good place at all. But anyway, any method that we try to sell the idea of respecs, it's not going to work for a very simple reason, that by the time that you do respec, it's too late. Even if respecs were there from the start, even if there was like a cooldown or a cost or a penalty, by the time you did it, by the time you respec, it would be too late because you're still competing with everyone. The gold that you lost or that you saw pass by, it's already gone, it's already spent. You're not going to be able to somehow get that back. And funny enough, though, now that I'm thinking about this, funny enough, this is one of those arguments where we can say, yeah, it is too late, might as well let us do it anyway because otherwise my profession is literally dead, so I might as well not give up hope. I've also been observing a lot of debate over crafting orders as well. Like, some people want public crafting orders, to have a quality requirement. Now, there are a few immediate problems that I see with that. Like, if we give players an opportunity to care about quality in public orders. We're going to see up-and-coming crafters who are just coming into the game, seeing what's going on, who can only make like rank 1s or 2s because they're still leveling up. They're going to feel totally left out by this system. It kind of sucks. Or it would definitely suck to learn a cool recipe that's effectively worthless until you spec hard enough into it to guarantee like a rank 3 or 4 or higher. People on low pop realms, they already have trouble fulfilling orders to skill up, and it would be that much worse if clients could choose quality and basically keep those crafters down and locked out. Now, to be fair, it does suck as a client if you were to get good materials, you plug it into the crafting order system only to have like a rank 1 or rank 2 being spit back at you. And expectations have clearly been subverted, but that's also a lesson learned. The approach towards public orders really is to expect low quality, and so put in low quality. It's a system of convenience, I think, when trade chat isn't able to answer your most immediate needs at the moment. But if you do want something high quality, you gotta be patient. You don't want to use public orders, just ask to talk to someone in trade. If a crafter is on, they'll definitely answer because they are hungry and they want your business. But if no one answers, then the crafter that you need clearly isn't available, or they're not on, they're not present, so you can just wait, or you can settle for a public order. Just do yourself a favor and go cheap. There's also talk from people who want region-wide crafting orders, whether they're public or personal or both. Because, consider folks who have friends on other servers. It kind of sucks that they can't help out one another through crafting order interactions. And as much as I want it to be like the best shield crafter in the region, that also can create some very big problems. Like, what if I was an actual big streamer, right? And regional crafting orders were a thing? Like, I know what I would do as a, $1 million streamer or whatever. I would announce that I'm doing some blacksmithing work. Like, hey guys, I'm on Twitch, I'm live, I'm doing blacksmithing stuff, send me your work orders, let's have a chat. And people would probably just line up for them to have me make something for them. Like, they would do it just for the sake of me reading their name or whatever funny thing they have to say in the comments. I would effectively be enriching myself with stream traffic while taking your guys' gold tips, and I'd be reading off messages and so on and so forth. I would have like this definitive outside advantage over other blacksmiths that I would actually make real money off of doing too, and I think that just wouldn't be fair. Now I can see public orders being region-wide to address the crafting order drought that many experience on smaller realms, but I'm also a little bit nervous that doing so wouldn't so much solve that problem as much as it would share the entire problem. And I think that the WoW team has to gather more data and probably do some back-end work before that can become a thing. So even if it is going to happen, we'll probably have to wait a while. Overall though, I'm somewhere between neutral and happy, leaning closer to happy with how professions have turned out so far in Dragonflight. Enjoying it does require good decision making and a lot of interaction in game, which might have been kind of the goal. It's a game. That's how I'm seeing this. It's a game, but it's not the kind of game where every experience is good, where everyone wins. There are winners and losers. No one likes being a loser, or they don't like being stuck on a loser realm. And there are some immediate improvements that I think would help. Like I was saying this earlier, like open up the low-level market with more Titan matrices, and consider regional public orders, but maybe adjust the crafting order to, I guess, ensure some more fair play. Now, I said earlier that I'm not here talking as if I'm right about stuff. I'm just sharing my thoughts, and I'd like you to share your own thoughts and experiences and feedback too. And that's all I've got. Stay safe, stay healthy, and stay breezy.